Admittedly, my bookshelf is not as diverse as I'd like it to be. This is partially because of space constraints, but also because these days I have a lot less spending money to use on buying books. Despite this, I am still a huge believer that buying, checking out, reading, and promoting diverse books is important. But what are diverse books? But first, we have to define diverse. I think what comes to mind when people say diverse is racial diversity, which is very important, don't get me wrong, but that's only one type of diversity. Diversity encompasses gender, religion, sexuality, ethnicity, and culture, age, disability, socioeconomic status, and neurodivergence, and more that I'm probably forgetting. But when you tack on books to the end of diverse, diversity takes on a whole new meaning. It's not just about reading characters of a variety of races, genders, or religions. Reading diverse books is also about expanding your horizons when it comes to genre, author, storytelling strategies, and story archetypes. I know that sounds complicated, but let me break it down using an example. Let's say you want to read more books with LGBT representation, but the only books you read are contemporary romance coming out stories like Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe, or They Both Die at the End. These are good picks for sure, but they sort of seem to focus on the angst and the heartache. But as Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie says in The Danger of a Single Story, to insist only on these negative stories is to flatten my experience and to overlook the many other stories that formed me. The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. So this is why Refugee by Alan Gratz is an important diverse book worthy of adding to your TBR. It tackles refugees not just from one angle, but from three, featuring Joseph fleeing Nazi Germany in the late 1930s, Isabel fleeing Castro's Cuba in the 90s, and Mahmoud fleeing war-torn Syria in 2015. We get three different perspectives on three different time periods about kind of sort of the same situation. That's a rare find in just one single book. But why is all this talk about perspectives and diversity and representation important? It's important because diverse reading creates nuance. If you only read books about Black teenagers in high school, then you'll miss out on Afrofuturism. If you only read historical fiction about American history, you'll miss out on hidden history from around the world. We don't want that single story to flatten out all the vibrancy of our world. And stories are powerful. They, I think, more than anything, influence the way we see the world. And we want to have the most well-rounded view of the world we can have. Because if we don't, we risk severely lacking in empathy. And I don't imagine that can lead anywhere good. The amazing thing about books is that since there are so many, there's bound to be a book in every genre for everybody. But how do you even start finding diverse books that you think you might like? Well, I think the internet is a great place to start. Scour the website Goodreads for genre categories, top 10 lists, and spoiler-free reviews. Hop on BookTube or BookTok and follow creators whose reading tastes are both similar and different from your own. Head over to your local indie bookstore or your library and talk to the people there. I'm sure that they will have awesome recommendations for you. So, I encourage you, don't just read Harry Potter style fantasy with a magical school. Read some magical realism. Read some portal fantasy. Read some high medieval fantasy. Don't just read dystopian YA for your science fiction. Try out a space opera, a zombie thriller, lit RPG, or some aliens. Don't just stick with first person either. Try out dual perspectives or third person. Try out Japanese manga or graphic novels. Don't just read books from big publishers either, since they are often the ones who have historically gatekept diverse stories from being told, and continue to keep publishing mostly white male dominated. Check out some independently published books, because by nature, indie publishing does not discriminate. You can be young, old, black, white, straight, gay, whatever, and nobody can stop you from getting your story out into the world. Okay, sorry, that's my soapbox for the day. Don't just read historical fiction about World War II. Try reading something about the Wild West, or the 1960s, or a time period or historical event that you know absolutely nothing about. Try out poetry, or nonfiction, or middle grade, or adult fiction, or biographies, or whatever you can get your hands on. I know that there are resources out there in your community. And online too. You've just got to find it. I'm certain that your brain will thank you for it.